Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to week 7 of Psychological Horizons meeting. And today we are having a discussion with art therapists, music therapists, and dance therapists. So, welcome once again, and we're really glad all of you are here. So, my name is Kanika Bhutoria. I am a consultant psychologist at MediBuddy, and I'm also a program assistant at iCallTis. And I would like to welcome all of you, including our moderator and panelists today here for week 7. A little bit about Psychological Horizons. So, Psychological Horizons is an initiative which is the pet project of all of the Montfort College Alumni Association. We have curated talks from various specialists in the field of psychology to answer the most anxiety provoking question of what do we do after we finish our masters, or which fields do we go in after our undergraduate. So here we are with various panelists from various professionals in the field, trying to have conversations with them about their journey, about their job, about their struggles in the fields that they've chosen, and just curating that information for everyone to benefit from. So we're here today on week 7, and I'm glad to have you all here. I would really like to take this opportunity to introduce our moderator for the day. We have with us Sudarshan Hebani. He was one of my beloved professors at Montfort. So Sudarshan is an RCI recognized psychotherapist who is practicing since 2011. He is a recognized resource person at Physical Policy Institute, a training center at KSA and AD audit officers for the Department of Finance, Government of Karnataka. Over there, he trains officers on the topics such as stress management, time management, and other organizational behaviors. He has also worked as research fellow on major research projects at St. John's Research Institute on alcoholism and domestic abuse. And his research work opened the gateways for intervention studies and qualitative methodologies. He has also worked on a minor research project funded by MHRD on theorizing resilience based on Indian scriptures, mostly focused on the Mahabharata. So, thank you so much for joining us here, and we look forward to having a discussion with you. Now, I would like to introduce our two panelists for today. Firstly, we have with us Dr. Gayatri, who is a chartered psychologist, founder, and director of Equilibrium International. The objective of Equilibrium International is to improve human lives through mental health and well being. Their work is evidenced by strong scientific research and driven by robust data. Additionally, she is also a user behavior analyst and consults on human behavior factors, which include observing human behaviors in business and professional settings and offering changing solutions with constructive feedback. We are really glad to have you here, and we're really glad to hear about your journey as well. And secondly, we have with us Anjana, who is a counseling psychologist and an expressive art therapist and psychodrama practitioner. She is also a trained and practicing visual artist. Her interest lies in the convulsion of arts and the psyche. She integrates various artistic modalities, techniques in her therapeutic practice with individuals and groups. In addition, she's also the adjunct faculty at of Arts at the Weather Center of Architecture. So thank you so much, Anjana, also for joining us today. I'm really glad to have you. And with this, I would like to hand over the platform to Sudarshan to take it forward with our panelists.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kanika. Um, I was very happy when Kanika introduced me as her beloved teacher, and I really consider every Montfortian as my beloved students. I mean, the memory is still evergreen. We all have had so much of fun time, so much of learning, so much of experience, and it is a great opportunity to come back on this platform. And I'm so happy that the Alumni Association has taken up such an interesting effort to make use of this platform. So, on this note, let us begin today's conversation. We are talking about the role of art, and we are using the concept art in a very, very broadest sense. It's not necessarily, fine arts is what I assume. So, there is a lot that we people in the field of psychology and mental health have have got to do with the field of art. Interestingly, with some of passionate students, we did some research studies on dance and the concept of flow in dance and such things. So there is absolutely no dearth for a psychologist to learn from any form of art, be it performing art or craft based art, or the literature based art. So uh, you know on this on note, I would request both the panelists to start your mm, sharing of knowledge, sharing of experiences, and then we will probably continue our conversation. So I would request Anjana to start, explaining her journey in the field of art and also her insights about art and its application in the field of mental health. So, Anjana, you want to begin?
Sure. Thanks, Sudarshan. So, to be very precise, like Kanika mentioned, I did study visual art. I trained as a sculptor, and I was practicing as an artist. Like I was exhibiting, making work, and then there the goal was pure artistic production. So you have an idea, you make it, you express it, and then you have a viewership who comes and then interacts with your work. So on one of these projects, I had the opportunity to go to the Jung Institute in Zurich and speak to the psychologists there. And also, they were kind enough to let me see Jung's archives of his patients' drawings from the World War onwards. And it is when I was doing that research project, I really decided that, I don't want to be just making artwork, but I want to be able to see how this can be used. And this can go much more than just a production that stays in the gallery. And that's really what ignited the idea or helped me like channelize my thoughts as to how to go about this. So coming back from Zurich, then signed up for a certification course in expressive art therapist there, and that's how it began. And there one of my supervisor was from Montfort, and she encouraged me to go and do my masters. So I came to at Montfort and I did my masters and finished the program in October 2021. So that's been like the training and the academic journey. When looking at the arts, I feel when we say arts, like you mentioned, it's just not about drawing. It's really all of it: drawing, drama, writing, poetry, movement, dance, and how all of these are part of human expression, communication, not only with the external or the other, but also how we communicate with our own selves or how we make sense of the world. And you expression to art through arts has been a very human tendency. So how that then work can be integrated or is being integrated with what we know, and how that can help someone like meet like sorry help someone, or how someone can use the arts to um, work through their mental health challenges. That would be in a nutshell.
Amazing. Thank you, Anjana. I think I was just making some mental notes when you were saying about your journey. I think all of us who have studied psychology would have studied this idea that whether psychology is art or science, right? And many people found it very, very fashionable to call it a science than art, and some started arguing that it's more of an art than science. So I feel creative expression, if you define art as creative expression of your thoughts, uh, is invariably part of psychology. And we all have have been expressing our thoughts in our own creative ways, especially when we are talking with our clients, when we are in therapy. We are using the art of talking, we are using the art of expressing our thoughts and feelings, and we are teaching our clients the art of expressing their thoughts and feelings in the most productive way, in the most healthier way. So considering that, I feel, you know, art is not just an external application on psychology, but it is an integral part. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Now, uh, may I request Gayatri to share her thoughts?
Thank you. That's a great starting point, Anjana, that you just provided. So I was trying to, actually think and wonder, what do I say? Because, you know, just like we discussed before the start of this conversation, that it's going to be very organic and we're going to take it forward. To be very honest with you, that's how my entire, I think, career and life has been. It's been very organic, the way it has evolved. So, just to give you a rough introduction so that you know why I'm giving you such a long story, is I'm a single child. So, I've been, one of those kids who has been exposed to everything by my parents. I would like to thank my mom and dad for that. And they put me in every activity. And at the start itself, I knew that sports I hate. All right. But as a kid, I've also been a very restless kid and I've always had a lot of energy. So the one thing that I realized that would, I was able to channelize all that energy of mine and that would calm me was dancing. Right. So I began dancing at the age of 7, 6 or 7. That's when I think I joined formal learning classes. And that's always stayed with me. And that's something I used to enjoy and look forward to. And then, of course, even through the years, schooling and everything, we've always, through teenage years, we've had moments where I thought, I hate dancing or I don't want to go for dance class. And my mom would insist and say, go for it, it's good for you. And I would go, what do you know? You don't know. So, there has been a lot of pull, push. But again, this has stayed constant with me. And now, in retrospect, when I see, I realize that it has been a very calming influence for me, dancing. And of course, then you pick up your courses, you go to university. I've always been one of those, again, I know it doesn't sound good, but I've been a very clueless teenager, very clueless growing up. So I've just picked up things as, they came. After my 12th, I didn't know what to do with my life. I said, well, I like literature. I like psychology, looks interesting. Sociology was the additional, subject that came along with it. So why not, try doing that? I actually wanted to join the media, once upon a time in another life. But then that didn't happen. Never mind. Um, Again, so that continued, and I enjoyed psychology. Of course, after the graduation, I joined Montfort. Again, I agree with all of you. Montfort is a great place. It's very nurturing. I think it gives you the freedom, as well as Montfort has always been a comfort zone for me. That's what I always say, right? From every time I come to India, I always meet Brother Matthew and I tell him, Montfort is my comfort zone. It's like, going back, it's coming back home. So that's how I feel when I come to Montfort as well. I did my master's, and it's there that this whole idea was planted in my head of, well, you seem to enjoy psychology. You enjoy dancing. Why don't you combine the two? And that's how the whole journey began. After the graduation, I was wondering, okay, I know I want to combine these two, but how do I do it? Now, when I was doing my master's in Montfort, the other thing I also used to do was I was dancing professionally, yes, but I also used to take dance classes at home. I used to have a lot of students who used to come home, and I used to have parents who used to come and tell me, "Oh, this is very interesting. From the time she started dancing, it's had a wonderful impact on her. I feel, her handwriting has improved." I used to hear random things being told to me. And one parent actually told me, "Oh, I think her eyesight has reduced." And I said, "Now, come on, stop it there. I mean, this is just dance. I'm not a clairvoyant or, one of those healing people who can change." But it got me thinking, the minute they started saying these things, it got me thinking as to, this is very interesting. Does it actually mean that it has some kind of a healing power? So it got me thinking more. Uh, so, like I said, I'm a trained. I used to dance professionally. I'm a trained Bharatanatyam dancer, and it stayed with me all my life. So, the one thing that has always fascinated me is the mudras or hand gestures that we use in Bharatanatyam. The expressions that we use in Bharatanatyam have always fascinated me. And I also remember for my master's course in Montfort, for the second semester and fourth semester, the research project that I worked on was judgment of facial expressions. And I used the whole concept of Navarasa and tried to use it as a tool uh, to look at how it can be, because Western philosophy believes in six basic expressions, whereas we have, the Navarasa, it's an ancient Sanskrit tool that's been present from ages. So I wanted to use that as a tool to see how can that be therapeutic, just to cut the long story short and make it, yeah, to talk about it. So that's what I did for my master's. And I really and thoroughly enjoyed that process. So that set the ball rolling, I guess. And I started trying to, come up with topics of how to take things forward in this field. I got an opportunity to, volunteer at the Spastic Society of Karnataka in Bangalore, Indranagar. And that's where the whole idea for my research project came up for the PhD. I used to work with children who, with special needs, children with, motor coordination problems or cerebral palsy. So that's the kind of team I used to work with and volunteer for. And that's where this whole idea, there was the idea emerged of how can I use dance as a tool to help improve not just your, motor skills ability, because if you observe generally children who have any kind of physical or, motor difficulties, there is always a comorbidity. There's generally, a motor deficiency, and there is also some kind of an attention deficit, or there is always a comorbidity that exists. So that got me thinking again as to, all right, what is the connection between, right, there is a physical problem, but how does it also impact the cognitive side of things? Again, that got me thinking. So that's where this whole idea of my research project came about, that I continued and pursued in Lincoln here, University of Lincoln. My research project explored, how can a physical activity like dance help improve not just motor skills, but also your cognitive ability? And what's the whole neuroscience behind it? I'm sure all of us have always heard that, you should be physically active, go for a walk, take a walk, it's very good for you. Or, go dance is very good for you. But then you also have naysayers who will come to you and say, "So what? Why should I dance? I don't want to dance. What is the benefit? What will I get?" Because there's always this, benefit associated. Like, why should I do it? What profit will I have by doing it? And that's what I was interested in. Is in Yes, when I go out for a walk, or when I dance, or when I move my hand up and down like this, say 20 times, uh, how does it benefit not just your physiological or the physical self, but the cognitive well-being and mental health? And that's how I ended up doing a PhD in this, and that's also the reason why I started the company, is how to take things forward. So yeah, that's my journey, if it makes sense, and that's how this whole thing came about. And I think, again, coming back to what we were discussing and what Anjana rightly put and said, that our whole arts for mental health, it's very niche, it's very new, but it's essential. Because arts for mental health, again, we cannot look at it as just a career option. I think it's a movement, because there are many people who still don't know what it is about. There are still many people who are trying to understand, and I'm sure, like I said, we will have a lot of naysayers, who will go, "Dance, what? So I don't like dancing." But nobody's asking you to just dance. It's not just about dance. It's also about any other kind of, like you rightly said, art form. It could also be a sport. It's any kind of physical activity, or anything that makes you happy. How can that impact not just your physical and mental health well-being, but also how can you see the improvement that can be seen cognitively, and the neuroscience behind it? Yeah. These are all the things that fascinate me, and that's why I'm in the field.
Wonderful, Gayatri. It is so marvelous to hear you look at your trajectory. And I was just thinking, I was just reflecting upon the point that you made at the end, that art is not, just meant for therapeutic purpose, or it is not restricted in that sense. But like I said in the beginning, it has, you can see art in every aspect of your life, you know um, just to put things in context, the place that I'm currently working, we have started a well-being center which is offering, space and therapy, professional help, uh, using all these allied methods, you know. So we have a Rangoli center, we have, a sand art center, we have paint brush center, and things like that. So it is not about, expressing your mastery. It is not about, performing. It's not about performance, because the moment we talk about art based therapy or art and therapy, people consider that, I mean, I'm talking from the perspective of a therapist. People think that you need to be an expert in one of the art forms if you have to facilitate that, which is actually a myth. Because honestly, I am not an expert in any of the art forms per se, but I'm generally interested in all Indian art forms, be it the painting forms or the craft forms or music or dance or anything. So what I do usually is I talk about it with my clients who have inclination towards that. To give you one example, one of my client, she is a middle-aged lady. She used to come to me for her, depressive experiences, and then we were working on that on a traditional, treatment procedures. And eventually, in the process, I learned that she has a very strong inclination towards Carnatic music. So in the process, I started talking to her about, how Carnatic music originated, and how does it help one in being more grounded and express their, feelings in different forms, in a very mathematical procedure and things like that. That caught her attention, and then she wanted me to encourage her to get into a class. Initially, she was very hesitant, and then she got into a class. She started sitting with small kids and she started singing sapasa, and then, to learn the basics of shruti and the talagnana and all of that. And then, it was such a moment of open for her, that she started exploring. Now she is going regularly to classes. So the thing that I'm saying is, you don't have to be an expert to facilitate something. I'm not a Carnatic music expert, but just the fact that, I got an opportunity to talk about it made a lot of difference in my client's life. So in this context, I would want to know from both of you, uh, you know, that how do you think, as a therapist, as practitioner, because most of us here are practitioners or who are aspiring to become full-time practitioners. So how do you think art can be facilitated? I'm not talking about art therapy per se. How do you think art can be facilitated? Probably Anjana can start.
So, you hit the nail on the head. So, the moment like I get a call or someone walks in and says they want to have therapy, and I say I'm trained in the expressive arts, I can almost see their eyes going big, or them say, "I'm not an artist. I don't think I can do this." So, it takes explanation. Also, I also talk to them and say that it isn't about the product. I'm not here to judge, and we are not even judging, but it is just to facilitate something, and it takes time. It also builds confidence, builds over time. So maybe when I see them the first time, we are not jumping in and doing a painting, but you just introduce the process. You let them touch color, or you let them touch sand in the sand tray, or they come and when in the physical space that I used to have, there used to be toys. So you walk in and you see the toys and you see the sanctuary, you see the material. So just that is a sensory experience. And then there is curiosity, then there is risk taking. All of that comes in with the arts. So, and also one of the things, like for me, the biggest learning was I remember reading Winnicott's paper on creative living and creative endeavor. And all of us are capable of creative living. And that's where I feel the arts plays the ability to imagine differently. So then the art becomes that bridge between where the client is and imagining a different world. And it's rather than using language, we are trying to tap into these senses to make that imagination manifest. So in that sense, that's how I approach the arts. And it honestly, it is I have had clients who are really will jump in and say, okay, let's try. Then there are clients who will come see, they'll be like, no, 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 I'm not good at it. Okay, maybe next time, maybe you want to put a dot, and slowly, and through that they start, like you mentioned, this person, your client, then discovered her hobby or passion, and then they discover what they want or what they like or what they left behind. So that's one way to do it. But I also have the opposite, where there are trained like architects or artists who will come in like, how can I draw? Like, because the training is so like, it's like working with a sports person. So if you see a footballer, if you watch a match with a footballer, you can't watch the match because they are only dissecting the match for you. Or if you watch a film with a filmmaker, they're dissecting the film. So then you don't do that with them. You don't do the medium that they're good at. You give them something completely different, and then you help them discover the joy and see how that then can be channelized in different aspects of their life. So art is just a tool. And as someone who's trained in, because we are trained in counseling and we have done so that's much, we know what is happening. But then you start communicating. So that's how it's been for me, at least so far.
Right. Thank you, Anjana. Uh, I was just giggling for myself when you said uh, you shouldn't be watching a match with a sportsman and a film with a filmmaker. I was just saying you should never watch life with a psychologist because that's what we keep doing all the time. Yeah, but anyways, so I am interested to know how a therapist, or anyone who is working in the field of psychology, not necessarily a therapist, can use art. um, Gayatri, if you can probably throw some light on that.
So no, actually, I was just listening to whatever Anjana was saying, and yeah, there were quite a few, points that you mentioned that it did strike a chord where, I think one of the things where you said was, I think sometimes it's not just the final product but the art. I agree with you. Sometimes when a client comes to you, or when you have someone come to you, and when you say, right, let's use movement. Now, I'm not expecting you to give me a final dance product and go 5, 6, 7, 8, do it. No, that's not the intention. Sometimes it's about the process, the entire process and what magic it can unfold when you're actually using any form of art as a tool. I think it's also, sometimes I feel as human beings or as a civilization, our whole attitude that we have towards the arts, that, it's convoluted and people feel arts is only, for pleasure. Let's keep it at the side. Serious careers like maths, science, and sometimes I have, because I'm a controversial person, I love arguing with people.
You
If
should
you
thank
ask my friends,
industrialization and Western invasion on us for this mindset.
well, that's another topic by itself, for
But
that's another
we
conversation.
can't afford to not mention that. It has spoiled
I,
us so
I,
much.
I, I agree with you. I agree with you because, again, the minute you try to introduce any kind of artistic, venture or an art form, immediately, the thing is, what's the profit? How will my child benefit? Or my son needs to do IIT, or I'm so for example, Anjana, if you take drama therapy, it can be fantastic. Or drama, they will say, if you take it to the corporate world and say, let's practice some drama, and what will drama do in a corporate boardroom? Well, you need voice modulation. You do a PowerPoint presentation, don't you?
Most of them will
Right
be doing
now,
that
if
anyways.
right, isn't it? If you face your back and you keep talking to the wall and not, maintaining eye contact with your, I don't know, marketing or sales team or with your clients, are they going to buy your product? You need to exactly, modulate your voice and decide where do you, raise your tempo or decrease it. Or otherwise, you'll be talking to yourself. That has a lot of drama elements, isn't it? I mean, marketing and salespeople will be able to tell you that's where drama comes in. So that, like, I think Sudarshan, you said it. There is art in every part, in our everyday life. We just don't, see it because our head is compartmentalized in such a different way that we don't see it. Coming back to what you just said, Anjana, about your experience that you have when your clients come in. Sometimes it can just be about touching sand, or I don't know, putting a dot. Even that is big, because I remember I was working on a project here, which was looking at movement, and again, we call it movement, not dance, because the minute you say dance, it freaks people out. So okay, let's stick to movement. Okay, I'm not going to say, when I say dance, I'm not expecting a 2.5 hour performance from you. We had a project that we worked on over here with people with Parkinson's. Now, Parkinson's is one of those neurodegenerative conditions where you have motor problems, and there is a lot of motor, physical, and the cognitive comorbidities that exist. So the project was looking at how we can introduce ballet and Bharatanatyam dance movements in a workshop format to help improve movement in general. So a simple exercise that I gave them was using the Alapadma in Bharatanatyam, and just use it for, to ask people, my name is Gayatri and your name is, and just go in a circle. It can be like an icebreaker session. Now, I just said, my name is Gayatri and your name is, so I just unfurled, the fingers, and I put it out there. I had one of my clients go, oh, you're doing it so beautifully. I don't think I can do it, is what she immediately said. I said, it's not about trying to get perfection. Again, like you rightly said, it's about enjoying that process. Now, at the first session where I had all of them with me in that room, they were very apprehensive. They were very anxious, as in, we are not dancers. We are just here. I mean, to be very honest, they were there in the session for the tea and cakes at the end of it, and the whole social psychology or the social aspect. I live in England, so tea and cake on biscuits is a big thing over here. So they were there for the tea and cake. So the first session was a little tough, where trying to get people to move. And the confidence level, generally when you have such conditions, is not at the, not at the top. But the interesting bit was, by the time we got to session 5, you should actually see the confidence, the way things changed. I had them coming, so they called me Gaia. They would get, so Gaia, I think what we need to do is, we need to make 2 circles. I will stay in the internal circle, and I think and I just went, this is amazing. From session 1, where they were so apprehensive and they used to stand behind holding the radiator, or that, no, 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 let's see what the others do, to session 5, where they would put themselves forward and they were suggesting changes. That's what art does. I don't know whether they have realized it. And another thing that one of my clients said, I think she had mild to moderate. The condition was mild to moderate, and she is in a regular job like you and I. But I think she was in the marketing team. She said, Gayatri, sometimes what I find difficult is to convince the person at the other end that I am interested in what you're saying, but I don't know how to express it. Something as simple as, when we talk, we nod, or we maintain eye contact. Even something as simple as this is a big deal for them. So she said, so I call this the Alapadma over here. I called it the full-blown lotus, is what we call. I started calling it over here. So she said, I actually hold the full-blown lotus at the back so that I can control my movements, and it gives me the confidence. Who knew, right? And I use the full blown lotus, I use the inverted full blown lotus to open the doorknob or to open the lid on a jar. Mind blown. So the actual applications of what you learn, in a dance session, so called, or a movement session, how you're able to apply it to your everyday, everyday life skills. Now, people will ask, what's the benefit of, dancing and using all the mudras or using yoga mudras? What do you use fine motor skills for on an everyday basis? If I had to ask you the question, what do you use your fine motor skills for? It's a very technical question that many people will go, I don't know. Handwriting, putting the buttons on your shirt, tying your shoelaces, all these require fine motor skills, isn't it? And the more you practice it, even if it's by, a dance mudra or a yoga mudra, it's actually providing practice. It's a kind of physiotherapy that you're giving yourself, isn't it? When you practice all these. And how are you able to transfer these applications to other life skills is what is fascinating, and which is what we need to make people realize. So yeah, that's what got me thinking when Anjana said, sometimes people are only worried about the end product and the profit. But sometimes it's not just about that. It's about the entire process and what you gain, the experience that you gain. And that's what the arts, or, or any artistic form does.
Yeah. Truly, Gayatri, it is about how we evolve over a period of time, and it's not about one day or one session or things like that. I was also thinking on the lines that art has always been, uh, an elitist, uh, passion. You know, especially in India, it was always um sort of. It came under the protection of kings and people with power, and of course that's how art flourished. So I mean, I'm not to blame that. So we have a lot of myths and misconceptions towards the idea of art. One myth is that it is an elitist form. So like how you said, I think Gayatri said that it is meant for pleasure, it is meant for a break time. I have to cite an example here. When I was talking to one of my colleagues, who is also a consultant for one of the corporate firms, he told me that it was his experience, not mine. So he said that he suggested the management of the corporate firm to introduce a break time for their employees because they were experiencing a lot of stress. So and he suggested that let's make it a little creative. So he said we'll call it "Oh God, it's Monday." uh, yeah, and then he wanted to convert that into "Oh good, it's Monday," because Mondays are the day where employees come to office but they don't necessarily work. So they, at the first time they come into their office, they will spend time in expressive art forms. They will have a lot of space where they sit, they do some things, like how Anjana suggested it. They feel the texture of sand, or they just play around with a ball or something like that. So basically, it was a time for them to relax, and they don't experience the Monday blues. But he said it never worked. It was not a very productive suggestion, because people started compartmentalizing it and saying, okay, Monday we will go chill and then feel feel the relaxed state, and then Tuesday onwards you take the same amount of pressure, you start working, and because you're compromising on Monday, so you have to take the load of that as well on Tuesday. So it actually worsened the case than making it any helpful. So so the second myth that people always have is that art is only a form of relaxation, you know. And since I'm also in the field of academics, we are now talking about the new education policy, and luckily our governments have realized the need for introducing other methods of learning, not necessarily the right read and write method of learning. So people are discussing about how to introduce art or drawing or anything of that sort as a mainstream course. So a lot of people still believe that introducing such topics are only a break time, or a method to take a break from your routine. So you take a break and then come back and do your main course. So art and expression is always meant for that, that you take a break and feel relaxed and come back. So how do you think we can break this myth? Two myths: one is that this is elitist, two that it is meant only for relaxation. I mean, anybody can start.
So I don't have an answer, but I have a lot of thoughts that echo, and maybe through that, through the discussion, I'll also get some clarity. So, is art as do I personally think is art as a profession elitist? To some extent, yes. I need somebody's sponsorship, and I need to come from some kind of security to be able to say I will live in my studio and do my work. So I need a patron, I need a king to give me money. Yes, in that professional sense, yes. But if you look, we are doing art right from the moment we are born, right? If you see a child do pretend play, they're doing drama. They're playing their mother's role, they're playing their father's role. And that's how they learn. That's how we learn about the world. So, art is inherent. As a profession, it has its whatever. But for me, the way I look at it and the way I understand art is inherent. But then that now, why do we think it is separate or elitist? I also think it has got to do with how we think about the body and the mind. We think cognition or we think math and science is what is privileged as opposed to expression, or we're taught to believe that. Even just within, even like to think of like we don't put art on the same pedestal, or we don't look at art as uh, complex as maybe science, or even what you said at the beginning, psychology is not an art, it's a science. What makes it so special? Art is as complex as science. Art in, has as many streams to it, or as many layers to it as science. Or a good scientist is also someone who's capable of creative thinking, right? So those are things, those are schemas, or those are stereotypes that we have built. And maybe it's time for us to start questioning it, both like at a structural level, but also we do it in therapy, right? When we talk to the client and they say they're anxious, where do you feel it in your body? How does anxiety manifest? What are you doing? You're bringing the client back to the body from the mind. You're saying, okay, thought is there, but action mein kya ho raha hai? Where is it manifesting? Where is it manifest? How does this heaviness feel in your body? Like a rock or like a piece of clay? And then, so by doing, I feel like in psychology at one level we work with one individual at a time, and that helps change the world according to me. So that is happening now. Again, at a corporate level and all, it's like I have people in my family in the corporate who will be like, oh, training ho raha hai, chalo, let's do something else. Or somebody is talking about mental health, let's do something else. It there is that stereotype, and you can't. It is something that we have to work with, and to also very often people don't realize they're consuming art all the time. What are you doing after your day's work? You go turn on Netflix, it's art. You put on some music, it's art. And that is part of your daily life. You listen to a podcast or radio, it's art. So just to bring cognizance, and with the education policy, I feel it might make a difference, because if someone has already approached it as a important part of their academic career at primary school level, they might value it differently.
Yeah, thank you, Anjana. That makes a lot of sense. Um, so, considering how we can incorporate art into our daily life, I think that might burst out a lot of myths and misconceptions. So, let me hear from Gayatri about her opinion on these two myths. How do you think we can get out of this? Because I feel it's essential for us to make use of art. If we can't break these myths, then I don't think we'll be able to reach out to a common man using art.
That's it's a I don't know if you remember, but at the start of our conversation, I said, this whole arts for mental health. I don't call it, for me, it's a movement because it's
Mhm.
going to take time to break
That's where my
barriers,
question originated, in fact.
yeah, because, and let me tell you, it's not just, oh, this problem only exists in India. It exists worldwide. It exists worldwide, where this whole thing where even if I tell people, yeah, so, one of my missions is to use arts for, mental health. Or even if you want to tell people, what do you do? A very common question that we ask, all of us, what do you want to become or what do you want to do? The minute a kid says, I don't know, I love theater or I like your drama, they'll immediately go, all that's very good, but what do you really want to do? Why? What's wrong in the answer that child gave? Just all that is good, but in the long run, it won't work. There, that's problem one. You know,
Yeah.
or in the long run, how do you know it'll not work, right? And then you end up saying, oh, it's been a long day, we work very hard. And like I think Anjana, you said, right? Oh, let's turn off Netflix. What is that? you know all of us are big fans of OTT and the web content right now. Where does all that come from? That's also creativity. You have someone who creates content. Where does that creation come from? Is that a degree that they teach you? I think I'm going to get into a lot of trouble, but but you're right. It is a problem at an educational level. Do you have like you have IITs or IIMs that train you to be a good engineer? Do you have institutes like that train you to be good content developers, to be good artists? We do have all of that, but again, it's all here, isn't it, where you say all that's good, but what do you really want to do? Why? Because you feel that is just arts or that's just pleasure. You don't mix the two professions together. Coming back to point two, as in why is this not taken seriously, is again, we live in a very I don't know whether again, this is again quite controversial, but we live in a very transactional world right now. Unless people directly see benefits, they're not going to agree to you. Like I said, I have fights even over here with people going, why should I dance? What will it do for me? क्या होगा उससे? कुछ नहीं होगा, ये नाचना वाचना सब बंद करो. You hear a lot of that regularly, but and then I have on the other side where I actually have people with Parkinson's where and once you reach a certain age, they crave for company, they crave to be with others. I mean, you actually introduce activities like this, there's a social psychology aspect to it. There is a whole, cognitive aspect to it. There is a neuroscience aspect to it. People ask, no, what the benefits of dance are. Let me tell you one thing. Dance is nothing but you observe someone, you imitate. There's observation, there's imitation, right? You replicate the movement, isn't it? So there's visual memory, there's visual motor coordination. Again, you say, oh, it's just music, sa pa sa, what is that? The way you put the talam or the way you put the tal, there is mathematics in it. Have you actually seen these benefits around it? Or because again, we are trained to look at art as just, it's a very one dimensional way of looking at things. It's high time that we introduce, multi-dimensional way of thinking to look at arts. Say in this context, we are looking at art, but it's about looking at things from a multi-dimensional perspective, and changing the attitude, which again, the grassroots level is educational system, right? It needs to start over there, and we need to encourage. Even I'm a parent, and I keep telling my husband, and I keep telling myself that I'm not going to tell my child tomorrow if she decides to pick up the violin, or if she decides to pick up the piano. I'm not going to say this is all good. Pick up a proper chartered accountant or become a lawyer. That's a good career. This can be side time pass. I hope I don't become one of those parents who tell her that, because, and I think I read a paper a long time back where they say always learn a form of art, not because, not just because of the benefits, but because of the multiple unknown benefits that it actually provides you. But, and again, this comes from personal experience and a personal space where I think I've always been a very anxious child. I'm still a very anxious person. But what dance does for me is it calms me down. That's what art can do to you or to your child in the future. And I think that's the kind of I think all of us, in this room, we need to be the agents of change, where we show people that, okay, you wanted benefits, these are the benefits, your list of benefits, right? Because again, like I said, this is the transactional benefit that you wanted. So these are the benefits, but it's also constantly showing people that this is, the difference it can make at a personal level for you or for the family and for the well-being of, that entire community. This is what we need to do.
The movement have started, Gayatri. I can feel the josh right away.
How's the Josh?
Yeah, yeah, it's building. So, on this note, I think I wish to share one last insight which I have been collecting off late, because I've been invited to write a chapter along with another academician for one of the books published by UNESCO. So the topic is family and intergenerational literacy, and they want to understand how non-Western cultures, non-English speaking cultures, to be precise, practice the process of transforming or to transferring the knowledge intergenerationally. This idea actually uh, originated when people realized that in India especially, there are certain communities who strive to pass on their art forms or their craftsmanship. There are many communities like that in India, where the community is known for a particular art form or a particular craftsmanship, but the recent generation would have taken up modern education and they would have gotten into a regular job, but they also want to retain that the niche practice. So what they do is they make sure that they teach the next generation to protect that form. So I was studying, I'm still studying this community in Karnataka called Daivagnya Samaja, Daivagnya community. So this Daivagnya community are basically goldsmiths. So their job is to design jewelries, and they have a very typical jewelry form. You find them basically in the coastal region of Karnataka, and because they are goldsmiths and they are known to be a very well-off community, a lot of them have migrated to various parts of India and abroad. And because they are exposed to modernity, they all are now getting into all modern so-called successful careers. But the community as such is very conscious of their identity and they want to protect it, and they want to pass on this craftsmanship which is very unique to their culture. In audience, those who come from the Udupi Mangalore belt, they will understand the Daivagnya pattern of jewelry, which is very, very defined. So, because they all are spread across, they are not geographically in one place, and they are also exposed to modernity so much, the art form started, disappearing slowly. So the heads of these community decided to get together, and they said, we need to protect this art form because it is not found in any other part of the world. So what they did was, they said, they converted that into a ritual. So what they did is, as soon as a boy or a girl gets into a matured state, say 16 to 18 years, they are made to sit with a proper goldsmith, and they have to assist him. So there is no teaching happening, but this person should assist. So this ritual will go on for 6 months to a year or so, and the recent generation are asked to do it. So in the process, they will learn certain basic skill sets that they only know. For example, how do you refine gold? How do you transfer that into a mold, and how do you make it into fine designs? What are the technique strategies involved in this, and so on and so on. So now it so happened that this entire community, I mean, a lot of them now have ventured into the field of jewelry making and designing and all of that, and they are ruling the industry. I am saying this with so much of confidence is because one of my cousin and a lot of people that I know are in the field of jewelry designing, and they were telling me that how intergenerational transfer of knowledge can make a person so strong. You know, this cousin of mine, he was telling me that I can clearly see the difference between somebody who is officially or formally trained from an institution. Let's say they have gotten into a course and they have learned the course, they have learned the art, and then people like this who come from a traditional background, they don't have any course done, but they have this intergenerational transfer of knowledge. So if you compare these two people who have this intergenerational transfer are found to be more skillful, creative, and very expressive, whereas formally trained people are they have a very formal systematic knowledge, but they don't have creative knowledge. So I'm saying all of this is because to agree upon what Gayatri was emphasizing, that as parents and also as members of culture that we represent, we all come from various part of cultures, and each one of us, I'm sure, know one art form that is either wiped off or on the verge of getting dissolved. So if we can practice this intergenerational transfer, I think it will be amazing. Not only because art is a method of treatment or a method of therapy, but art is an expression of our civilization. Art is an expression of ourselves. Art is an expression of our thoughts, feelings, and belief system. So I mean, I'm really into a lot of thoughts, and I don't know if I've taken a lot of time, more than panelists speaking. I think I'm speaking a lot. I'm really
No, no,
sorry.
no. If I could interject you there, and sorry, I need to. I wanted to say what you said is so valid, and you know, it's actually right. I think intergenerational way in which you learn from one another is it needs to be, and it's something that needs to be carried forward in the future. And I feel with India, we are such a rich civilization. There is so much. I mean, I sometimes feel I don't know, I think my mom will be listening to this, and at some point she'll say, oh, once upon a time you wanted to run away from India, now you're praising India, is what she will say. But the truth is, there is so much that is still left undiscovered in India, and we don't realize it. To give you a small example, even when I was doing literature, again, it boils down to the educational system, isn't it? We are taught about British literature. I learned about Shakespeare and everyone first. And then towards the final year, in the third semester, I think the third year or the fifth or sixth semester, is when I started learning about Kalidasa and, other poets or Kabir Das that we have in India. And I just thought, why did we learn about them first? Because we have, I mean, we act, again, it's this whole, I think it's the British Raj impact that we started the colonialism and the impact it has on the way we think, on the way we live our lives, and probably one of the reasons why many of our artistic forms are getting lost, like the Nadaswaram. You play the Nadaswaram. It's I think I went to a cousin's wedding of mine and I saw a lady playing the Nadaswaram. I was so impressed. I was very impressed, and I said, this is what we need, where we have people promoting, or something, even sometimes simple things like learning about the Mahabharata. I mean, sometimes people ask me, you are not into sports, but why do you see tennis? Right now, let me tell you one thing. The rules of tennis were taught to be my grandfather, and I think that's why I have that attachment. I remember I went for summer holidays to Palakkad. That's where my maternal grandparents used to stay, and I think I still remember that it was the final played between Nadal and I think Federer, and that was the first tennis match I saw. And my grandfather explained the rules to me, so I always have that association, and that's why I'm so fond of tennis. That's how we need to build. Where this is where intergenerational um, learning and play can have an amazing impact on future generations. It could be learning tennis from your grandfather, or it could be learning Sanskrit shlokas. It could be learning to play the violin, the piano, understanding about an art form, learning about Kalidasa or Kabir Das, or even learning the Mahabharata or Ramayana stories from them. you know you might think, oh, this is time pass, but no, it's about the memories and how it can impact future generations, and how it will impact and how you decide to take things forward. That will play a very important role in an entire community and civilization. So, I mean, I don't want to bore people more, but I agree with you, Sudarshan, where this whole intergenerational play, I find it very fascinating, and I think it's a great tool for the future.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, Anjana, please share your thoughts.
So, when I was hearing the two of you, I was thinking of the shamanistic practices that happen in cultures all over the world, or also rituals that you pass on. Like when you said that the 16-year-old, that's again developmentally what stage they're in, what is happening to the mind, they're coming of age. Even if you look at both Indian literature or Western literature, if you look at Joseph Campbell talking about the hero's journey, or you look at shamanistic practice or tribes where they would send a young boy or a young woman out into the forest, do something and come back. So that's that age where identity is being formed, the brain is developing, sense of self is being formed. So having that ritual is clearly of benefit in a sense of mental health as well, because it gives you what groundedness, rootedness. You know who you are, you have a skill, you can do something with your hands, and all of those then translate into your adult life. So I was just thinking of also like just as a community level, or when we practice in communities, how do we then adapt the rituals or the art forms that we have? Because honestly, no one is going to sit and do a kolam on a daily basis, but there is some, but that meditative practice or the flow or all of the eye hand mind coordination, all of those things, how do you then adapt? And what are the rituals that we already have in the city, in because we practice in urban center? And then I was just thinking of all of that and the mental health benefit of that. It's not only transgenerational trauma, it's also transgenerational wealth in that sense.
Definitely.
Narratives and the narratives that we carry on then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Truly, truly. Yeah, I think we have already consumed 5 more minutes from our time. And I think it's worth consuming that much of time. And we have had some wonderful conversations. Um, and if at all Gayatri is planning to start any party that that propagates art, then I want to be a member of that. Right. So thank you so much.
Well, we're all part
It's
of it. We're all part of it. So, it's let's not make it a dictatorship. Let's make it a more democratic process. You don't need just one leader. We need
I'm
many
really
leaders.
disillusioned with the democracy already. So yeah.
No,
All right.
true.
Anyways, that's a different conversation altogether. So thank you so much, and I think we have to quickly summarize that we have spoken so far. All three of us have sort of touched upon the role of art in the field of psychology. We have also looked at how art should be part of our daily activity, and we have to break the hesitation of art being a very exclusive process. And we have also spoken about how it has to be a very organic and intertwined in our daily life, right? So any final comments from both of you?
Before the final comment, sorry to really jump in the middle. It was a very inspiring and I think it was a very thought provoking conversation that went down between all three of you. Before we proceed, I just wanted to know that we have a few questions that have come in from our
Okay.
viewers.
Okay.
So if all of you are okay with extending a little bit, because we have shot past 7 p.m. IST. So if you're okay with continuing, I can shoot out the questions and you can answer them. Or if you have other obligations, then we can obviously email you the questions. You can answer them to us and we can put it out on our channel. So whatever works, whatever's comfortable for all of you, you can just let me know.
I think I was wondering, I don't know, again, we can make it a democratic process, but I was thinking maybe we can take two or three questions and then the rest we can answer via emails because, yes,
No,
yeah.
I completely understand. Thank you so much for accommodating. Is Sudarshan, Anjana, are you both also okay with the same?
So, works for me.
Okay. Okay, so I'll quickly shoot out a few questions. So we have one of the questions where they wanted the speakers to talk about how to use art therapy as management or treatment plan with a case example. I think that could probably be a little long.
So, uh, to just maybe I'll try and do it as quickly as
Yeah.
possible. So, one, the art modalities, I integrate them with talk. It's not individually done, and also I don't just use art or poetry. It's always one leading to the other, and
Mhm.
the goal, you always keep the goal of the the therapeutic goals in mind. You don't just do something because you can do, and you pace with the client. You stay attuned to your client. Is your client willing and in a place to be able to process? So let's say you do an artwork and there's something that's a red flag for you, but is your client ready to process that? If not, you hold it and you bring it back. So those are things that I would do. I have used it with mood disorders, PTSD.
Yeah.
It really works because it's one of the very potent way of bringing in what is within outside without threatening your client.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
just
think
one
that's.
more thing, Kanika.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Art is just not about pulling out from the psyche. It can also be used as a strength based approach. So if I say the client says they did something and they felt really good about themselves, you bring it to the body and say, where do you feel good, where do you feel safe, and then you hone that in and you work on that. And next time the client comes in anxious, you try to access that when the client is ready to access where the body felt safe.
Yeah.
So that's a different another way to use the arts.
Yeah, I think that's a very beautiful way to put it. Like, we generally segregate the therapies or the techniques that this is, it's either strength based or it's for coping or it's for preventive. But, we miss out that for every client can be different. For some, what is preventive can be strength for something else. So that's a very crucial point to bring in. So thank you so much for that. So one other question that we have is that there's definitely a direct association with art is always with the feminine energy. It's always associated with femininity, with feminine energy, with grace and so forth. So how do you find the gender balance here?
I want to oppose this question. I mean, femininity is okay, but there is nothing like feminine power. There is no gender discrimination here. Anybody, I mean, there are beautiful artists in all sort of art forms coming from all the gender representations.
No, I completely understand that. So
I
yeah.
mean, if panelists have something to comment, that was just my opinion.
So when I don't know where the question what the person asking the question means by feminine energy, because the feminine and the masculine are both accessed by all individuals, and we have stereotyped the arts as a feminine activity as opposed to going to war, which is a masculine activity. But we are both men and women can be lethal when they want to kill someone.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to use the arts, if the client is coming in with this view saying I'm more masculine, then you help them get in touch with that. Or if someone is coming saying I'm only feminine, and you try to understand what the word feminine and masculine means for your client.
Yeah.
And if you're working with someone who identifies as binary, this question might not be valid.
Yeah. Definitely.
So it's really about holistic balance as opposed to one or the other.
Gayatri wants to comment something here.
No, I just agree with, whatever Anjana was just saying, that sometimes it's we have both the masculine and feminine energy within us. It's about what you wish to access and not what society thinks you should access and just stick to. That is very important because, just to give you a quick example, we are okay with our daughters being tomboys. What's wrong if our sons decide to pick up ballet? There's nothing wrong with it. And so this gender fluidity is, definitely an important concept. And let's not try and stereotype the arts and say, you know, ballerinas are girls, and he dances like a man. Let's just, I don't think art has any gender. So let's not,
Yeah.
try and again compartmentalize.
No, it's a very all of the viewpoints are very valid. So yeah, jumping into the last question that we have for the time, if any of you were given a chance to teach art or movement therapies to trainee students of psychology, what are the main basics of change you would share with them?
I, if I were to facilitate, I would try to do a workshop or a program where they just experience it,
Yeah,
because lot when we are, at least in my experience, when we are studying masters, we are so focused on our assignments and this and that, we forget the experience of psychology.
yeah,
So once you experience something, carry it forward when you work with someone else.
yeah.
I'll keep it short and simple. I'll just say stick to the basics. Try not to, complicate things. Sometimes it's the simplest things that can bring about magical effects. For me, that was a personal learning, especially even, for example, for me, this has always been Alpadma. I've never thought beyond that. I never thought it could actually be the inverted lotus could help a person open the doorknob, or, open the lid of a jar, which is clearly very important to her and something that we all take for granted. So whenever we set up, a session, or whenever we go into a session, or whenever we are going to have, when we have clients come to us, let's go with let's stick to the basics one, and let's take the route that they wish to take with us. It's a journey that both of us are on together, and let's try and not just design goals. Okay, we're going to do 6 sessions. By the sixth session, this is what we need to do. Sometimes the magic is also in the process. Let's respect the process.
Yeah. I think that's very beautifully put by both of you. Personally, as well, I've been able to be a better therapist to my clients if I've experienced those techniques for myself, if I've tried those techniques for myself, because you not only understand the effectiveness of it, but you also understand, how it feels, or what are the even the difficulties that you could arise while using it. And yeah, I think sometimes we always think that we have to be very complex about things. We always have to, like, you know put a lot on the plate, but sometimes even one dish that's very well done on a plate is beautiful enough. So yeah, that's a very beautiful thing to share. So with this, we come to the end of today's session. It was an amazing session, very thought provoking, a lot of perspectives coming, a lot of, I would say, a lot of questions also. It leaves you wanting for more, it leaves you wanting to keep hear more. So it was a very beautiful session that we had today. Thank you to our moderator Sudarshan and both of our panelists, Gayatri and Anjana, for being here with us today. And thank you to our viewers as well, and everyone who put in all the effort to making this session happen. And please to join us next week for our week 8 session with NGOs. And we look forward to seeing you there as well. And have a good weekend. Thank you.
You too. See you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. You too. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.